Welcome back, Defenders. Jake here. Check it out. Ukraine's Ministry of Defense has switched up their graphic showing Russian losses, and it still looks bad for Russia. In a single day, 980 eliminated personnel, 18 tanks, 19 armored vehicles, and 15 artillery pieces. Based on these losses, we can determine that Russia is still on the attack in Avdiivka. Russia steps up assault on Avdiivka. Ukraine kills 900 troops in one day. Ukrainian forces have been braced for fresh attacks against Avdiivka for days, after last week's disastrous assault by Moscow's forces. So there's not really been any significant changes on the map, but Russia has been, day after day, assaulting Ukraine in Avdiivka, hoping for a breakthrough, hoping they can surround this city. And it's always worth reminding everyone that the Russians have controlled the city of Donetsk for 9 years, and for 9 years they've been trying to take Avdiivka, failing to do so. And the videos online are inexplicable. There is no commander in NATO anywhere that could justify the losses that Russia's high command is currently sustaining. I will link these videos down below. Armored column after armored column, in broad daylight, charging through open fields, being annihilated by mines and Ukrainian artillery. This is a death sentence for all of these Russian troops, and this has been going on for almost 10 days now. Failed assault after failed assault, trying to make progress on the city of Avdiivka. And this video in particular is pretty fascinating. This is the one people have been focused on the last 2 days. But this vehicle in the front here is a mine-clearing vehicle, clearing a path for all of these armored vehicles. And it does turn around in order to return back to its unit. But these armored vehicles were supposed to get close to this tree line, dismount their soldiers, and take the tree line. Turns into a turkey shoot. These armored vehicles carrying Russian personnel start to panic and try and turn around. They bunch up. They all get annihilated. There's also a spectacular video. Russian TOS-1A thermobaric rocket launcher absolutely detonates when hit by a drone. Here's the video. I'll link it down below. The range of this TOS-1A is only about 6 kilometers, so if they want to use it, it's got to get pretty close. Traditional artillery likes to stay, about 20 kilometers back for safe distance. So this was a prime target for Ukrainian drone crews, and a $400 FPV drone blew up a $15 million TOS-1A multiple launcher system. If you want to see what these FPV, these first-person view drones look like, it's just a quadcopter with a warhead on it. It's a single-use operation, but if you can hit one of these artillery trucks when it's loaded with its munitions, it makes a massive explosion. This was kind of satisfying to watch. I'll link it down below if you want to see it for yourself. Russian Air Force grapples with the worst week of the war. The last 7 to 10 days have been the worst week of the war for the Russian Air Force. Historians will have to compute the precise numbers, but the Russian Air Force just got hit with crippling and possibly unprecedented losses. So how bad is it? We've talked about the airfields in Berdyansk and Luhansk getting hit, potentially 9 or 10 helicopters destroyed or damaged. But Russia's also been losing jets. 5 Russian attack jets in 10 days. Something is knocking down Kremlin's jets. Like a lot. Ukraine in recent months jumped in with 2 feet on developing Franken-Sam missile systems to fill its air defense gaps. The Russian Air Force recently has felt some serious pain. So the Su-25s can attack from a substantial distance. Therefore, the enemy has to fly closer as a result. Ukraine has shot down 5 planes in the last 10 days, mostly in the Avdiivka region. Russia's trying to use their jets as air support, but if they get close to the front lines, Ukraine is finding a way to shoot down these planes. And it's not just in the war zone where Russia continues losing aircraft. Russian planes continue to fall out of the sky and blow up everywhere. This time it occurred in Tajikistan. Another Russian military transport, Ilyushin 76, crashed. This time while trying to take off, the plane caught fire and then blew up on the runway. Will we ever know what really happened? I don't think so, but more than likely it's the lack of parts and maintenance from Western firms where Russia can't maintain their own aircraft properly anymore. All of these aircraft are flying with improper parts, improper maintenance, and probably with pilots that have been worked a little too hard to continue flying such delicate instruments. Ukraine counteroffensive update. Russian forces overwhelmed. Biden tells Americans not to turn their backs on Ukraine. The United States will send longer-range missiles. Ukraine's forces advance near Bakhmut and on the east bank of the Dnipro. So there's a lot going on. Let's go through each one of these stories one at a time. Let's start with the White House requesting from Congress $61 billion in aid for Ukraine. Initially, President Biden was trying to get $24 billion just for the next year, but I don't think we want to do this vote again in 1 year. So what the White House is doing instead is saying, let's set up a permanent fund without a time limit. So this $61 billion could be for the next 3 years. We don't know how long this war is going to go on. For a specific breakdown, this bill is $106 billion total. $14.3 billion will go to Israel. $9.1 billion will go to the State Department, which includes humanitarian assistance for Ukraine, Israel, and the Palestinians. So the question is, will this pass? And at the moment, the United States still does not have a functioning government. We don't have a Speaker of the House. McCarthy was removed. It then looked like it was going to be Steve Scalise. Then it looked like it was going to be Jim Jordan. Nobody can get the majority of votes in order to be elected Speaker of the Chamber. I'm very happy it's not Jim Jordan because Jim Jordan does not support Ukraine. But what I think is going to happen, and there's no time-sensitive votes that need to occur this month. I don't think there would have been a vote until November 15th of next month anyway, so we've got time. But what needs to happen for the first time in the history of the United States is we need a coalition government for the House of Representatives. So the Republicans are in the majority only by 5 seats, and they can't agree on a speaker. So what needs to happen is for a group of Republicans, 6 or more, to go to the Democrats and make a deal. They have to give them something. A promise for a clean up or down vote on funding for Ukraine, a promise for a clean up or down vote on funding the government. At least 6 Republicans, and it'll still be a Republican speaker, but they need all or a certain number of the Democrats to vote for their speaker, and they have to offer something in return. This has never happened in the House of Representatives in the history of our country, so this is a new thing, but I'm confident that a deal will be made in the next 3 weeks, and I'm actually more confident than ever now that Ukraine will receive this military funding. Will it be $61 billion? I don't think so. Congress is probably going to amend that or change that or add conditions, but I still think this is positive news for Ukraine. The vote will occur second week in November. ATACMS deliveries to increase, optimistic that F-16s will arrive beginning of 2024. F-16s are on the way, and ATACMS are now here. And here's the headline. The United States handed over expired ATACMS missiles to Ukraine. Yes, technically they're past their recommended service life by the manufacturer, but they're still perfectly good missiles. So here is a bar chart showing US current inventory of ATACMS. And the United States has 1,100 unexpired inventory, so these are produced and refurbished in recent, like the last 8 years. But the United States does have about 1,200 expired ATACMS that are past their recommended service life. What does this mean? It means we would still use them. If the United States were to go to war, we're still going to use these ATACMS missiles. So what I think is happening, and I can't confirm this, I don't think the Pentagon is going to talk about it, but Lockheed Martin is currently producing, or they're starting in January, production on the next generation of missiles for the HIMARS launcher. They're called Precision Strike Missile, or PrSM, and the United States is going to continue giving to Ukraine our oldest ATACMS missiles, while the next generation missiles are produced. So whatever Lockheed Martin can make a month, 20 or 30, I don't know that number, that's how many will be released to Ukraine every single month. And I think Ukraine is going to get every variant. Whatever is expired, it's 25, 26, almost 30 years old. Ukraine's doing us a favor as an American. It would cost money to decommission these missiles safely. Instead, we can just allocate money to ourselves to buy new missiles, give these ATACMS to Ukraine, and Ukraine can decommission them on the Russians. So here is their reaction on Kremlin State TV. They finally talked about ATACMS, how another red line has been crossed. Preparations for an even more destructive war are in full swing. Biden plans to ask the US Congress for $100 billion to Ukraine and Israel, according to Bloomberg. The day before, the White House officially confirmed the delivery of long-range ATACMS missiles to Ukraine. Another red line, predictably, has been broken. The Wall Street Journal sources report that the Americans have delivered several long-range missiles to Ukraine secretly. If the New York Times is to be believed, and we don't believe this newspaper, the Pentagon has delivered only about 20 missiles to the Ukrainians. These American lethal novelties are capable of inflicting long-range strikes against Russian troops in the rear to support, quote, an important phase of the Ukrainian counteroffensive. So Russia doesn't actually have any red lines. All they have are brown lines. Ukraine situation reports ATACMS may spur Russian force relocations, according to UK intelligence. Yeah, that's what has to happen. The Russians are in a panic, and they have to decide, do they want to risk having an ammunition depot, a command post, or a landing strip within 300 kilometers of the front lines? Russia has proven that their air defense systems are now trash. They can no longer stop these missiles. Everything of value now within 300 kilometers of the front lines is probably going to go boom in the next couple months. Ukrainian Marines cross the Dnipro River. They're digging in. This is pretty interesting. What's happening here is this is the Kherson front. And getting equipment and troops across this river in large quantities would be a real challenge. This is very difficult to cross a river while Russia still has artillery pointed at everything. But Ukrainian special forces, and these have all been, highly trained fighters, they've been making amphibious landings across the river and raiding these villages. And the goal, I believe, is once again to just drain Russian resources and distract their high command, take some of the pressure off of the defense in Zaporizhia and the offense currently happening in Avdiivka. So can Ukraine do it? Can they establish a permanent presence in one of these villages on the other side of the river? It's possible, but because of the land connection, Russia still has the natural advantage. Getting across this river with equipment and vehicles is just too challenging, but it's interesting, and I give the Ukrainians a lot of credit for being so daring and brave doing these amphibious assaults. Putin left the Belt and Road Initiative in China, and the first place he went was the Southern District Command Office in Rostov-on-Don. This is the headquarters building that Prigozhin captured during his rebellion, but Putin met with Gerasimov in order to get an assessment of how the war is going. Putin is being told everything is going according to plan, according to Ukrainian intelligence. In an exclusive interview, Ukrainian intelligence spokesperson Yusov said, "Anyone who told the Russian president the real situation on the front line would be sacked or worse." So what's that old saying, in the Soviet system? We know they're lying. They know we're lying. We know they know we're lying. We know they know we know they know we're lying. Putin is a product of the Soviet era, being a former KGB intelligence officer. He knows his military commanders are lying to him because, if everything's going according to plan, this is a terrible plan. But this is how things function in Russia. You just keep lying about something until somehow it resolves itself or becomes true. Or if you lie enough about something, you can somehow manifest it and make it true. As an American, I don't understand this kind of thinking. Russia has been taking horrendous losses the last 10 days. It's obvious to any Western observer this is not working, but they're going to continue lying to themselves, believing that if they just send one more armored column through an open field in broad daylight, somehow there will magically be a breakthrough in Avdiivka. As Putin leaves China empty-handed, Russian propaganda hails triumph over the West. Putin is currently trying to build a grand alliance, including Iran, Syria, the Taliban, China if they can get their help, and the North Koreans. Olga cannot stop gushing over her visit to Pyongyang. Let me share this clip with you of Olga talking about her trip to North Korea.
В столице КНДР устроили невероятно пышную встречу и даже организовали торжественный концерт с цветами и флагами под дождем. Вообще в КНДР Лавров супер важная новость. Именно наш министр на первой полосе главной и единственной, так она выглядит, северокорейской газеты «Надонь Сун Мун». По-нашему это газета «Труд». Лавров здесь. Сразу 7 фотографий. Вывозить газету из КНДР нельзя. Это народное достояние. Но для нас сделали исключение. Сразу 2 копии для потомков. Так нам сказали.
Every fact about North Korea is insane. So she states that this is the one newspaper that exists in the entire country of North Korea, and it's illegal to have the newspaper taken outside of the country. But North Korea was kind enough to grant the Russians 2 copies to take for themselves out of the country. Do we even still have paper newspapers here in the United States? I don't genuinely know the answer to that question. And I lived in South Korea for 6 years, if you didn't know that. And I learned a lot about North Korean society. And the way that somebody explained it to me is that when the Soviet Union collapsed in 1992, North Korea became frozen in time. North Korean society has not advanced since 1992. Yes, Kim Jong-un and some elites have cell phones, they have modern cars, they might even have computers. But North Korea has its own intranet. They don't have the internet. They have an intranet of only state-approved facts and websites that only ruling party members can sometimes access. So if you go to North Korea, it's going to feel like you're living in the late 80s or the early 90s. And it's incredible that North Korea became frozen in time when the Soviet Union collapsed. And here we are 30 years later, and Russia's running to the North Koreans looking for help, looking to restore the old Cold War balance between the West and the Soviet bloc states. Kim Jong-un has to be pretty satisfied with himself, knowing that all they had to do was sit there and do nothing for 30 years, and the Kremlin would come crawling back to them. We got the first picture of North Korean artillery shells. These are 152 millimeter and 122, a picture probably taken by a Russian soldier, but yep, North Korea is supplying ammunition to the Russians in Ukraine. Let's get to the good news for Ukraine, and Croatia has officially transferred all 14 of their Mi-8 helicopters to Ukraine. Thank you so much, Croatia. Canada has sent another batch of their Senator MRAP armored vehicles to Ukraine. The Ukrainians absolutely love this vehicle, so thank you so much, Canada. Final couple feel-good clips. The first one is a Ukrainian mortar team showing you the movable roof on their current position.
Тут пол лежить. Сейчас. Тут стоїть 6 колес.
7 посередині.
7 ось до. Вот. Все, протікати тут нічого не буде, а ну, вскривай.
Передній ляда сюди раз.
Хоп, наїбенили, а стрілялись і закрились. І передня ляда.
Looks great. Final clip I have for you is a Ukrainian child who was gifted some art supplies from a humanitarian group.
Дивися, що тобі є? Це тобі ось ручки. Кольорові. Подожди, у нас тут є інакше. Це тобі маркери. А, це фарби, мабуть. Це тобі блокнот, зачекай. Це вам на всіх чекай. А ось це, глянь, що є. Ти що? Боже мой, моя ти... Так, якщо ти будеш плакати, я більше не привезу. А ти глянь, відра. Тебе відра, всього. І тут є тобі ще навіть такий бісер. А там є, знаєш що? Крючочки для сережок у дівчат робити з бісера. Так що оце тобі все, це тобі від Каріни Куприянської, це тобі зі Швейцарії все.
Не з України.
Так, це не з України. А це вам печення на всіх звичайно. Добре?
That's all for this update video. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. If you found this video informative, give me a thumbs up, best way to support the channel. Comments and questions, let me know down below. I love hearing from you guys. Till the next video, keep defending the truth, keep defending democracy.